Houston Rockets were just eliminated for the postseason. Will and I are going to go over that right now with a special guest. So stay tuned for this episode of the Bradeaux Show.
All right, and welcome back to the episode of the Bradeaux and Will Show. We are joined for hopefully one of many next times, but this is DeAndre. It's probably like 6, 7, 8 time on the show now. We're joined by DeAndre, the man, the myth, the legend himself, to break down this Houston Rockets playoff series. To kind of give you all a little bit of a sneak peek for what's to come next for the Houston Rockets, based on what we just learned from the postseason. But before we get into that, man, DeAndre. First off, let me know let everybody know where they can follow you at, and then how you doing right now.
Doing great. Glad to be back on the show. I think I went back and counted. I believe this is my 6th appearance, and if I did the math correctly, J-Dub has 9. So wow, okay. I'm coming for your spot, Dub. I'm coming for your spot. I'm gonna make sure I open some summer slots, man. I'm coming for that number 1 guest spot. Y'all can find me on Twitter at Willems, WILLLUMZ. My link tree's in there to YouTube, the podcast. Whole 9 yards. But yeah, I mostly just be on Twitter now. I keep telling y'all YouTube videos gonna be back. I'm gonna stop lying to y'all one day. I promise I'm gonna stop lying to y'all one day. I'm gonna get on it. But yeah, that's really where you can find me.
Man, look, if y'all not tapped in with Dre stuff, y'all need to. One of the best Rockets creators out there right now. Any platform. And we always appreciate you tapping in with us on the playback as well. So let's just dive straight into it, bro. Rockets, they made it close, got back to 3-3, fell short to Golden State. Once again, man, we talking about this whole series. We're being dead honest. So, man, let's talk about it, bro. What do you think about that series and game?
I went back and watched it on Synergy. I probably watched each game about at least 5 times. I know I watched Game 7 at least 5 times. I'll start with the positives. The positive side of it for me is I know I have 2 dudes. I know I have Amen Thompson. I know I have Alperen Sengun. A lot was thrown at them, a lot of different coverages. And it wasn't always perfect. It wasn't always pretty, but they found a way to persevere, push through, and still find ways to be effective. Ultimately, didn't end up being enough across a 7-game series, but you see what the future is going to look like with those 2 if you give them the ample opportunity, get them the right pieces around them. And I think that we do have the groundwork around them to continue to make it work. Interested to see what they do in the offseason in that regard. But to the negatives, man, the lack of shooting on this team became really apparent. I saw a stat today. Golden State attempted basically 4 times as many threes as we did across the series. Not 4 times, it was twice as many as we did across the series. And across all the other series in the playoffs, the difference was like 1 to 4 3-point attempts a game. It's really hard to win in 2025 with that big of a disparity. You could see that we were a bit flustered at times with the zone they would run. Some of the lineups just weren't built to shoot the ball and stretch the floor. I think this should have been more of a Jabari Smith Jr. series. We talked about in the playback. I feel like that should have been a guy, especially with how they were running that zone. Just some of the issues we were having creating spacing. Like, that's what he's there for. That's what you drafted him for, was to be that kind of Swiss Army knife, spacer, mid-post, dribble pull-up kind of guy. He was really, really excellent in the minutes that he played. And I feel like we did him a bit of a disservice by not getting him more reps and more touches in those moments. And I feel like it would have opened up a lot for Sengun, a lot for Amen, even more for Steve-O on the glass, because he's still a big body, 6'10", 6'11". He's drawing a guy out there with him. You got to remember him and box him out. And then the biggest elephant in the room, I spoke about it before the series when I came on and said we need a Jalen Green series. We got 1/7 of a Jalen Green series. Or on the flip side of it, you could argue we got 6/7 of a real Jalen Green series. We have a 300-game sample size of who the guy is. And I don't want the pendulum to swing too far because, you know how Twitter is. He's got to be out the league, send him to China. He's not that bad. He's still an NBA player, but he's been miscast in a role. And I think it's become painfully obvious. And it sucks that it had to be revealed this way for the entire world to find out. Some people, we've had these discussions before about what his future will look like, what he truly could become. But I think now, after seeing it in a playoff series, it's just become painfully obvious exactly what he is and exactly what to expect from him. Will said it a couple times in the playback. It's hard for me to put my trust and faith and reliance on Jalen Green when last 3 games, dude, I've seen 8 shots, 9 shots, 11 shots, and a couple of those were in garbage time. I can't go into this game thinking, man, I need 25 from Jalen Green when you haven't shown me you can do that. You haven't shown me that I can rely on you and say, you're going to get me at least 6 makes tonight. You're going to give me 6 makes and 3 free throws. You're going to give me this. It's hard to put your faith in that guy when he just hasn't consistently done it enough. I'm interested to see what Stone does in the offseason regarding that. I'm cautiously optimistic because it's such a glaring hole and it's such a glaring need for this team to just add perimeter shot creation and just spacing overall. And we have the assets to go do it, whether it go be the home run swing and Devin Booker, seeing what other superstar becomes available in the market, whether it's Kevin Durant. I know that's a name that's been floated around a lot. It's the NBA. It's so volatile. By the time Summer League hits, I don't know who's going to be available. We never really know. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But those were really the main takeaways from the series, just having to find out what exactly is going to be that third guy, really, next to Amen Thompson and Alperen Sengun, because God willing, those two are on my team for the next decade, and we allowed them to become the duo that I really think they can become. And God willing, we find that real perimeter creator to help just to situate their life, just to make their life on the basketball court so much easier and to give them more space, more freedom, and just a better fallback option.
I'll say this. Yeah, I'm proud of the young guys for fighting the way they did, right? Down 3-1, a lot of people wrote them off out the gate. I love the way they fought back and made it a series. And yes, they ultimately fell short, and there's reason for that, yes. I'll talk about Jalen a little later in this, but yeah, I agree with Dre. The Rockets have 2 guys. Amin showed a ton of dog in this series. You know, game 3, I believe it was, he played pretty poorly, awful, in fact, to his standards. After that, he looked like he wanted it and more. Like, he was excellent. Not only on defense as he has been all season, but offensively he was getting after it. And he had one of the best players I've ever seen in my life in that game 7. But outside of that, that's your guy long term. He's not going anywhere. Sengun, efficiency was not there. I'm starting negative on Sengun for a reason because it was really positive in my opinion. Not the offense, but the defense was amazing. Dre, you watched that game 7 multiple times. You probably saw it. The scrambling ability from Sengun, and also in 6, he's going everywhere. He's scrambling, he's contesting, he's running around. He had one play where he ran back to Jimmy and got the block. But his ability to get to the corner and then just the roaming is amazing. From a guy that's supposed to be a defensive liability, a guy who's supposed to be getting played off the court, that more than anything was what stood out to me. That means he's a guy you can build around. Like, hey, we can leave him in the game in a playoff setting. And that's a guy who can be a center of the future. More importantly, in any offense, you can play as good as offense as you want. If you're getting played off the court defensively, none of that matters. So for him to go out there and play the defense he did, that's what meant the most to me. But yes, I do believe he's missing way too many bunnies for his standards. I'm a huge Sengun guy. He is a 60 true shooting percentage guy. He did not show that this year, but I believe he will get back to that. I hold him to a very high standard, but I'm going to give him credit because, man, he showed up on defense, and I think he can get back to himself. And we'll get a taste of that this offseason when he's playing in Eurobasket. I'm excited to see how he looks there. So that's all I have to say about Sengun. But, yeah, man, there's a lot to talk about this, and we can even make it a conversation because I don't want to go for an hour. But shit, man, they should have played Jabari more. Jabari playing 12 minutes in Game 7 is ridiculous in a series where Dre outlined it, man. Yeah. They're taking double the threes as the Houston Rockets. I'm looking at halftime. I'm looking at the stat sheet like, man, Buddy got about 8 threes, and we took about 8. You know, he made about – it's just the math wasn't working. It's 325, man. Like, that's just not how you play basketball. I don't know what they finished with, Dre. If you know off the top of your head, I want to say they took 18 threes in this game.
Yeah, and like 5 of them were in garbage time for real, so it really wasn't even that many.
It's not going to cut it. It's not going to cut it. Jabari's got to play more. That's one of your shooters. But yeah, man, from roster construction standpoint, everyone's here going to talk about Jalen. I'll talk about Jalen. And the team, you know, Ime talked about it. Steve-O talked about it. Yeah, you know, the game plan was to, you know, take out Jalen Green. So, you know, that's what's happening. You know, playoff rise or this and that. But, you know, Jalen being a game plan at the game. I get exactly what they're saying. It's real. But at the same time, Jalen cannot allow himself to be game planned out of the game and then mentally check out offensively. I thought he was mentally weak in this series. Again, Jalen is a 22 points per game player this season. I'm going to hold him to the standard that he showed me in the regular season. Yeah, man, that's just not acceptable. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable to his standards. He wouldn't say it's acceptable. I don't need anyone coming at me crazy because he did not perform well in this playoff series. And he did not. He would tell you the exact same thing. He's got to be much better than what he showed, and everyone has the right to be, questioning if his future is stable in Houston or not. It totally makes sense. And at the same time, I can understand that people are patient. Like, hey, okay, first playoffs. It's not an excuse, but you got time to bounce back. You're still 22, 23. I see both sides of it. And I personally am at the point where I understand if Rafael Stone says, hey, we going to make a move off of this player. I'm with either decision. It has to make sense. I'm not just trading him just to trade him. I still like the kid. I understand it. But if Rafael wants to go in a different direction, I totally understand it. But he has to be a lot more mentally tough. What stood out to me, him and Dre get into the back and forth. He gets into the press conference. Dre, he just be talking. You don't do this and that. Dre talking noise. He's talking about painting nails and this and that. Man, I'm coming back next game with 20 minimum. Like, you got to be mentally tough. You people talking to you crazy like that. He came back next game with 7. That's just, to me, that speaks to being mentally tough. And he even said it at the game, too. The lights were too bright in game 1. But shit, then the lights were too bright 3 through 7. Yeah. So I need my man to step up. I have higher standards for him. So that's just all I got to say about Jalen, man. But yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the season as a whole. I don't want to talk for hours, like I said, but those are just my main takeaways.
Excuse me, my fault, chat. The first thing that I want to talk about with the playoffs is, number one, I think Drake nailed it. I know I have 2. Right, like I know I have 2 guys in Amin Thompson and Alperen Sengun, and their series were not perfect. They struggled. Like I think Amin was downright terrible. On offense and defense in the first 3 games or so of the series. I thought, first 3 games, I thought he was downright bad. I thought that he was not playing the level of defense that I expected him to play on Steph Curry. And then he was sped up and played right into Steve Kerr's hands on offense. It was just bad for him. And that started the whole narrative. I told you he can't win treasure to the postseason. He can't shoot, blah, blah, blah. That all started up. And then I think where Sengun's, thing is one, he's getting guarded by Draymond. But there was a lot of times where he smoked some very easy shots. Like I look at game 7 and I say, love you, Sengun. I thought you were the best player for us this series. I think you let us down game 7. I think that if he played a bit better than what he did game 7, it's a different game. And, I understand that he's facing a lot of defensive coverage. But a lot of those shots, you go back and watch them, they're pretty mundane, routine shots that he just missed, right? A couple of times where he was just blew a bunny for us, had a flat tire. And I think there's context behind why he struggled so much in game 7, so much of which could be attributed to fatigue. Because, I'm going to then praise these guys. But the point I want to make is that I don't think that Amin and Sengun played a perfect series, or that they were, this was just like, oh my God, these guys are just on a different plane. Like, no, they had their struggles. But what I love so much about them is how they responded to those struggles and how they looked in the series as a whole, right? Like I said, Amin Thompson, in my opinion, was downright awful in games 1 through 3. And I think it was the start of the 4th quarter in game 4 was where like a switch flipped in him and Sengun's head. And it was like, oh yeah, we're just the best players on this team and we're going to play like it now. And they just went back to back, just scoring. It was a couple of times where they were feeding each other. Just, you saw the full duo and what they could grow into one day on full display. Obviously it wasn't enough for us to get the win that game, but you saw the potential in those 2 guys, right? I saw Amin Thompson and the way he fought when we were facing, honestly, eliminations. I thought game 4 was an elimination game. I think that's the game we lost the series. If I saw the way that Amin went out there and left it all on the court and gave it his all, even though it didn't necessarily look pretty, there was times where he still, could have did more, right? Just seeing him leave it on the court. Same thing with Sengun. I saw that passion. I think he led us in every statistical category this postseason. Y'all can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I want to say he led us in everything: points, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, like all of the above. So he was dominant on that end. But the part that really stands out to me is how he answered the call of would his game translate from a defensive perspective into the postseason. And, that was one of the biggest question marks about him, honestly, since we drafted him, was would this guy be able to hold up defensively in a postseason game? And, you look at, he's been compared to like Sabonis and Jokic, and these are guys who, especially at their younger years, people were like, man, their defense is terrible in the postseason. Like they're hurting their team so much so that they should just be off the court, and on the postseason on defense. And I can say unequivocally that's not true at all for Alperen Sengun. Like that question got answered for me, honestly, in game 1, game 2, that he was not going to be a liability on the defensive. And I think it's a testament to his skill set, his work ethic. I think it's a testament to Ime Udoka, his coaching and his culture setting, that somebody who very much had defensive concerns is not only do we not have defensive concerns about him, I think he played amazing defense. Like I thought he was a big reason for why our defense was as lethal as it was this postseason. I think a huge part of that is attributed to Alperen Sengun and how much he's working on that end. He's covering a lot of ground defensively, guarding a lot of guys you would not think he should be able to guard. Like I saw him get switched on and stuff in the Jimmy Butler a couple of times this series. And, you would think that's just, all right, possession's dead, that's food, someone go send help. Sengun held his own. I saw him make the scramble plays and stuff like that. I saw him, contest shots at the rim. And so, like I said, I think he answered the call defensively, absolutely, like 100% in this post-season experience. And so, I want to make sure that's on paper. I think that one of the reasons why his offense wasn't there where you want it to be, the dude's probably gassed, bro, because he's running around the court. I think he's probably covering the most ground, maybe outside like Fred, Dylan, and the men on defense, because those are the guys who were guarding like stuff through the screens. I think Sengun covered the most ground of anybody on the Rockets this series. And that's also with him being the de facto guy on offense, right? One of the questions I want to answer, because I asked people on Twitter for some questions they want us to answer, was the hierarchy. I think that's just yap at this point, because if you watch the 7 games, I know what the hierarchy is. Get the ball to Sengun, right? If let him do what he's unequivocally the first option on offense. That is non-negotiable. I think y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. Once that he led the team in field goal attempts, led the team in touches, led the team in usage, I am positive. Like what I watched the series, Sengun is the number one option. And I think from there it's some combination of Fred or a min, but I saw Sengun step up as that number one for us. And so when he's doing what he's doing defensively, and then also being the go-to on offense, on top of go-to on offense, being guarded by Draymond, and as offensively inept as we can be sometimes, like I said, the offense kind of just comes down to, here, Sengun, save us, and that would probably gas you out, over a 7-game series, if that's to do both of those things for a full 7-game series. So even though I think he can be better, and I think he should have been better, I hold the candle temps. I expect great things from him. I think he could have been better Game 7. I still think he played phenomenally, and because I expect great things from him, that's why I won't accept Game 7 from him, because I know he's better than that. I think Brad also nailed it with the Jabari talk. I think that Jabari should have played a lot more this series. He's someone who showed me a lot on the defensive end. Right, that was an area where I thought he really thrived. I think it was a play, game 2 or 3, I can't remember, where he stopped a 2-on-1 fast break by himself, and that is that's just crazy, bro. To stop a 2-on-1 backpedaling by yourself, it's different plays like that he made defensively that really stand out to me. He stepped up and made huge threes for us. And like Brad said, for a team that struggles with spacing, struggles with putting up shots with volume, I think Jabari was really good at that. Maybe the self-creation back still isn't where where people would want it to be per se, but I did see him kind of get into the 1-2 dribble pull-up a couple of times this series. I could see that being a shot that he kind of works on and continues to develop going into the other stages of his career. That being something he kind of go back to reliably. So I was really impressed with what I saw from Jabari. I think he was probably the only guy, maybe outside of Sengun, who from Game 1 did not look flustered, right? I think Jabari looked ready from the jump. Everybody else, like I said, I think Amin had some growing pains. Jalen for sure had some growing pains. Tari had some growing pains. I think Jabari, from the moment Game 1 started, was all right, I'm ready for the moment. And that means a lot to me, especially for someone at that age. That absolutely means a lot to me. Fred, I'll give Fred some credit, and then I'll kind of pass it back off because I don't want to hog the mic too much. But there's another the elephant in the room I want to get to in a different segment. But I thought Fred played really well, right? He played another guy who I thought played pretty bad in the first couple of games. Matter of fact, I think he's a huge reason we lost Game 1. I love Fred, but he was absolutely a huge reason that we lost the first game of the series. And I can't remember if I did it on the podcast, but I know I did it on Twitter. I know I did it on TikTok. I issued the challenge of when are we going to see the game where our veteran leader looks like a veteran leader? When are we going to see the game where he steps up? And I'm not going to say it's to carry the team exactly, but when, look like the guy who's been here before, look like the guy who's been in the league for about a decade, look like the guy who's won a championship before. When are we going to get that game from Fred? And it was as soon as I asked him to do that, games 4 through 7, I believe, did it. Absolutely did it, right? I can't look at what Fred did the latter half of the series and say, especially with his age and what his role is supposed to be for this team, I can't look at that and say he should have did more. I love what he did, like from his scoring perspective. He hit a bunch of threes. He was going bad for bad with Steph in that department. I thought he stepped up huge defensively on Steph Curry. Min Thompson, like I said, I love him, was getting cooked. Like I don't know what was going on in games 1 through 3, getting fried. And I thought that the only guy on our team who really like went out there and really challenged Steph was Fred. At his age, where his knee health is, running off those screens, staying connected to Steph, just being tough and physical with him. I thought Fred did an amazing job on Steph Curry defensively. Even though I know, like, I think I saw a graphic that said Steph has scored on him the most of anybody in the playoffs. Steph's just a great player, but I watched the game. I think Fred played great defense on Steph. And then just the intangibles, right? There was the moment in Game 7 where I can't remember if he hit a shot or if somebody hit a shot, but as they're getting back on defense, he turns and looks at LP and screams, "Wake up!"
Oh, it was him that made this shot, and he didn't say "wake up." Will he did?
That's not where it stops. Yeah, my fault. That's not. But you get it. Like he was like on the being that on court coach, being that on court leader. That's what we paid you 40 M's to do, right? You know what I'm saying? That's what you got the bag that you got paid for. That's why you played the minutes you played for. And so he did that, and I am appreciative of it. I don't know what the future holds for Fred in terms of his long-term outlook on this team. It's looking like he's going to stay, which I'm okay with, especially considering what I think is going to happen with the team next. But even if it's like if that was his last game he played for us, like I'm thankful for the Fred VanVleet experience. As someone who's it's been a roller coaster. I didn't really want Fred at first. I'm thankful for it because I think we're the better team for it moving into the future. And I think he showed his value and why you pay him what you pay him. Like I said, especially in that latter half of the series. So. I'm
glad you brought that Fred point up.
I want to pass the mic off so I don't get for too long.
Talk about Fred because he's due for an extension, not an extension, but the team option is due in 5 days, 44.9 minutes. So I'll pass it to Dre. That's what you were going to talk about.
Yeah, I was exactly what I was going to talk about. I'm really intrigued to see what they do with Fred. I think what happens with his team option will give us a pretty good outlook on what the plan most likely is. I'd assume if they accept it, it's going to be used as trade bait. That's just what I think. I think that they're going to use that. I believe it's 40.9 or 41.9 million. They'll use that and they'll go forward and say, all right, who are we matching salary with? Is it going to be a KD? Is it going to be I assume he wouldn't be in the Devin Booker trade, but who are we going to use his salary for to go get a star? At this point, I think I'm against that. I think I would rather decline his option. And I think I'd want to see Fred here on a 2+1, maybe just a 2-year deal. I'd say his value on the market is probably about 20 million to 22 million. I don't know if you maybe he'll take a hometown discount for us now. I think all the guys in the locker room love him. Coaching staff obviously loves him. He's really ingratiated himself in the city. So I'm hoping that they can work out a team-friendly deal that allows us to still go explore more options in free agency and through trades. But I think the answer to a lot of our offseason questions will be answered on Friday when that decision is made, or before Friday, regarding his team option.
Yeah, I was going to say this really quickly. It was reported even back in January by Jake Fisher that the Rockets had mutual interest in getting back with Fred VanVleet going past this season. So it was reiterated by Ime Udoka in the press game conference as well. They had a mutual feeling there. So yeah, they're going to bring back Fred in my personal opinion. I know he was dangled around in trade talk with KD and other guys, right? But yeah, I'm 100% with Dre. This is most likely getting renegotiated. 2022 would be nice. It'd be nice. I don't know if it goes that low. I hope it does.
It'd be nice.
It'd be nice. But I'm thinking around 30, 35.
I think the scary part is, that's the scary part is because this free agency class is so weak, he's probably going to get more than his true value. Like I think Fred VanVleet at this stage of his career is probably like a 12 to 15% of the cap guy, which I think is around, after the salary jump, around that like 20 to 25 million range. I think that's his true value. But if he wants to go on the open market, a team's going to pay him. Like he's going to see what he did here, see how he changed the culture, see him still stepping up in those big moments, being able to fit next to another ball handler, how he fits with a center, how he fits with a Min Thompson, and just so many different types of archetypes of players. And he could get an overpay if he wants. Fred could probably collect another check if he really wanted to. I'm hoping that the city has shown him enough love and that he'll show that love back. That's what I'm really hoping for.
I'll keep it a stack. Will and I have talked about this too. Like, if I'm Fred, like, why y'all not giving me the same money I was just making? Not all. He's not hoping to get 40, 45. But man, look, you saw that stretch where he went out. They lost about 6, 7 straight games.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this right now, without, as Will mentioned, games 4 through 7, Fred, this ain't a series past game 5. Like, it's clipped. So if I'm Fred, I'm going into negotiations. Cool. Like, hey, he's probably getting 35. I'm not gonna hold you. Well, I'm curious to see what Will says. Again, I'd love for him to get less. Maybe gets a hometown discount, but they probably gonna get that brother his paycheck. But I would love Fred back. I don't think he's traded. Curious to see what kind of deal he does get. But yeah, there's a bunch of trade talks around, or there's a bunch of talks around that contract and what they can do with it. And then we're not gonna be talking about it all offseason, but I'll pass it to Will.
I can't pretend that I'm a capologist, so I don't really know how all that works. And if we give him this contract, what does that mean about future flexibility, or not even future flexibility, but just flexibility for the team? Like this summer, I don't even know how much cap space we have this summer, to be completely honest with you. But I know that in an ideal world, I don't really want to give Fred a long-term deal. Not because I think he's bad, not because I think he sucks. It's just more of, I think his age showed a bit this season, right? Because he was not as good as he was last year. And I do think that I think he's on the downward trend. Like he's in the latter half of his career. Yeah. And I think as he gets older, I think the injuries are going to start piling up more. And then as the injuries start piling up more, it's going to sap him of what his game is built around, right? Because I think his game is kind of built around being the feisty, strong, hard-nosed guard, because he's not that athletic, he's not that tall, he's not that. I mean, he's strong, obviously, but he's not. You know what I'm saying? He's not muscling people out the paint. And I think as he gets older, that appeal starts to kind of go down. It becomes less valuable the older he gets. And so I don't really want to give him something super duper long term to kind of insulate myself from the reality that is Fred declining. Like, I don't know, this is a hot take. If my options are like 2 for 25 or just accept the team option, I think I'm just gonna start that team option, bro. Like, it's especially if that doesn't, I would need to know what that does for potential free agent signings and like trades. Like, obviously, if that limits that option, then yeah, like I don't want to limit our flexibility in terms of trades and free agency. If it, just to bring back Fred, I'd rather handle make the roster better and then re-sign Fred than to just re-sign Fred at the expense of making the roster better. But if I can make the roster better while keeping Fred on that 1-year team deal, I'd rather just take the L and overpay him for 1 more year, because after that, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think we're going to have a pretty good idea how the rest of Fred's career is going to go by the end of the next season. And then by then you can say, all right, I'm comfortable giving him this deal. Or maybe you do like 1+1s. Maybe at that point he'll be at the stage of his career where he's cool with the 1+1 type of deal. But I'm just trying to like insulate the Rockets from giving Fred a contract that ages badly. Because I think as of right now, we don't have any bad contracts. Now that's obviously subject to change, but as of today, I don't know if we have any bad contracts, and I would like to kind of keep it that way.
I think the interesting thing about it will be we kind of drafted his replacement, and I don't think you can't really go even a year of not playing Reed Sheppard, because I think then at that point the question becomes, why did you keep the pick? And I think Reed Sheppard, I think he's too good to not play next year. If every report is true about how talented he is and how hard he works, then he'll be a feature on this roster next year and a feature in the rotation. I kind of get your point with the team option if that's the route that they're going to go, because then it could be at the deadline you use Fred as a salary dump in a trade maybe. I'm intrigued to see. I still think that for Reed's sake, I would love to have Fred as a veteran there. Yep. I think Reed's a little taller, a little more athletic, but I think he can learn a lot from Fred on how to build a successful 10+ year NBA career as an undersized guard. Like, there's certain things that they kind of have to pattern each other's games after, right? Like being an immediate pull-up shooter off of screens, learning how to defend as a smaller guy. Like, that was the big concern with Reed and why he didn't play this year is, man, every single time Reed hopped on the court, it was, I got white boy. Like, that's just the truth. They were picking on Reed over and over again. So I'm really, really hoping that we can keep Fred around just as a mentor role in that aspect. And we spoke about this, and it'll probably get brought up again in the Jalen discussion. I don't want it to be we have to rely on one guy situation again, because I think that was a massive problem with parts of this roster this year. And my complaint was about if somebody got hurt. And we kind of saw it with Fred this year when Fred got hurt. Brad brought it up, that stretch. I think we went like 7-7. It might have even been worse than that. where we looked lost at times on offense. It was, are we getting a Jalen heater? Are we getting a Sengun heater? Is a man dribbling today? That's kind of what it became. There was no real fallback option behind Fred, and I think that's true for a lot of this roster. And I don't want that to be true for, in my opinion at least, the most important part of basketball, your lead ball handler, the guy that's supposed to get you into your sets. I want to be able to have some flexibility with him, Amen, and Reed. If I go into next season saying that's my ball handler room, these are the three guys that I'm entrusting to lead my offense across a 48-minute game, I'm pretty happy with that. Regardless of the result, I see the vision of having those three being the leaders of your offense, conducting your offense across a 48-minute game. That works for me. You take one of those guys out the equation, it becomes a totally different science that you got to figure out of, all right, what if Reed's having a year two game? What if a men's handle just doesn't look as crisp this game? What if it's happening at the same time? Because it's going to happen at least once next year. Who do we fall back on now? So I do think, and we've all said it, I'm team bring Fred back. I'm praying, Fred, if you watching this game, just take the team-friendly dick. We're going to get you, like, set up at the gallery or something. You know what I mean? Like, we can –
He gonna be a Houston legend, bro.
Like, you know what I'm saying, bro? Like, you're gonna be set up
here.
here, man. You and Drake cool already. Drake down here. Like, we can work it out, man.
I'll say this real quick. I didn't discuss how long I would like a deal to be, but yeah, I think Dre was perfect with his analysis. Like, you got Reed sitting right there. You just drafted him. Ideally, you need him back in the mix, and I'd like to see him getting 20-ish minutes next year. Like, I like the talent that Reed brings. They drafted him for a reason. His talent offensively is perfect for what this team needs. There's even an article on ESPN. They say, hey, this is potentially the most offensively gifted player on the roster. I don't know how true they think that is, but I do think this is a guy who should be taking the reins from Fred eventually. And maybe Fred, if he wants to stay as a long-term Rocket and he can come off the bench eventually, cool. But I'd like to see Reed in the mix. And I think it is a failure if you go into next year and Reed's not even playing. Because we wasted a third overall pick at that point. So I'm curious to see what they do with him. Reed, that is. But, yeah, if it's up to me with Fred, I may go 1+1. I don't know if he takes a 1+1 or a 2+1 decline. But, yeah, man, whatever happens, I do think Fred should be coming back. That could even be a podcast in itself. We're sitting here talking about Fred for a minute. But, yeah,
Fred,
man.
Come on the show, Fred. Come on the show, man. They're not going to shoot their shot. I got to shoot the shot for him, man. Come on the Bradeaux and Will show, Fred.
Hey, two quick things, and then I do want to get to the elephant in the room. I'm mad at myself that we not talk about Steven Adams.
Oh my God, MVP of the season, MVP of the season, man.
Yeah, because Steven Adams was phenomenal. I saw him play some defense. I didn't even know he was capable of playing anymore at this age. Like with the way the season started, I'm like, okay, like he's getting up there in age. This just might be like the tail end of his career. Little did we know that was just him working himself back into shape. Yeah. Because the way he performed this postseason defensively, my goodness, like I said, I did not know he still had this much gas left in the tank. The rebounding was still potent, the screening was still potent. I think that Game 7 he wasn't as good as he could have been, but at the same time, dude, like, I hope people don't take this in an offensive way. He's a role player to me. So when my role player plays the way he played in 6 of the 7 postseason games, I can't look at you and say, "Well, damn it, man, you didn't play for 7 straight games." Like I'm sorry, I can't get mad at you as a role player when you've played your role phenomenally in 6 of the 7 games. So credit to Steven Adams, and then you kind of answered one of the questions. I have a couple like quick hitters we'll go over before we end the show. People asked on Twitter, but one of the questions was just that, like, do we still think Amen Thompson can be the point guard of the future? And I still do. I still do. I think that the biggest thing, and I've been saying this since like his rookie season. If you've been following the podcast, I was saying it before we drafted him. I said it before the season ended. His biggest weakness is not his jump shot. It is not at all. And I think if you watch this series, you knew what the weakness was. It's not his fact that he couldn't shoot. It's the handle. It's how inconsistent and shaky it can be. Now, like there's moments in Game 7 where he's going behind the back and Euroing and inside hand finishing. Yeah, crazy stuff like that, right? But as a whole, the biggest thing that's going to limit Amen Thompson from playing point guard and reaching the high-end outcome that I think we all on the stage believe he can reach is his ability to get to his spots without losing the basketball. Like a lot of times you'll see he'll run faster than he can dribble and stuff like that. So I think the biggest thing with Amen and his ability to play point guard moving forward, lock in this summer, bro. nothing but handle drills. Like that's really it. Because I think everything else will take care of itself. I think the natural athleticism and talent for the game, I think it's gonna fix itself. His touch is already solid in my opinion. I think he could still continue to work on the floaters and extend the range that way. But the biggest thing that I think limits Amen Thompson's game and the biggest like swing factor for him right now, in my eyes, get that handle down pat. Like I don't know if you got to work with Kyrie. Me and Dre been joking, but we're gonna get him in the gym with
Devin the lab, man.
Like, we got to do something, bro. Like get the handle down pat, because if he comes back next season with I might say it's be Kyrie Irving, but if he just comes back with just a like serviceable fluid handle, that changes everything. Like, and
it's just got to be functional. That's really it's got to be functional. That's the one thing, and you said it perfectly. Like he'll leave without the ball, and it's not like he doesn't want. Like he wants to push the pace. You saw in Game 7, we got back in the game because he was able to push the pace, push the tempo, buy us more possessions that way just by simply playing faster. I've seen the growth. I will say, to his credit, from OTE day one until now, it's night and day with his handle, and that gives me the belief that I was gonna mention that, like, he was attempting, like, not like falling back on, but like attempting mid-range pull-ups. Like that was his game. Like he took a couple of them. I'm like, all right, maybe this wasn't the shot, but I love the confidence. It lets me know that you've really been working on it. But with the handle, like I've seen the night and day change from day one stepping into OTE until now. And if there's one dude I'm not gonna doubt, like I call him a black Viltrumite. I really think he is. Like he's not from this black Viltrumite, bro. Shout out Invincible. Brad ain't watched Invincible yet, man. You gotta tap it in.
I was having.
Like he's a, everyone calls like Kawhi the Terminator, the Cyborg. Like to me, he's in that vein. He's a little bit of a nutcase at times. He got a little different software update than Kawhi did, but the way he works, how diligent he is, just the improvements that we've seen. I'm not gonna doubt him whatsoever, and I'm not gonna doubt him after losing a playoff series either. Like I know that he is upset. I know he's frustrated. I know he's angry. And I know he's the type of person to respond to that by just working. Like I don't think he's gonna take a long vacation. I'm not expecting no Amen Thompson and Cancun picks. I'm expecting the next time I see Amen Thompson on the timeline, it's gonna be him working out with somebody.
Yeah.
I'll say if everybody's ready, I'm ready to rip the Band-Aid off, man.
Me and Dre already talked about number 4. I'm assuming that's where you're going with this.
Yeah, I want to rip the Band-Aid off. Preface it by saying, bro, it's just hoops, bro. It's nothing personal. But I did go into this postseason experience wanting to see big things from Jalen Green. Right? Like I had high hopes, high expectations for him. I know that he's historically struggled against the Warriors, but I'm like, if there's any setting to like right that wrong, it would be in the playoffs. And his game looked like it would be the type of game that would like elevate when you needed it the most, right? Like that kind of just seemed the way his game would trend. So I had pretty high hopes and expectations for him, right? Game 1 had a stinker. I was like, man, like, yeah, it was bad, but first game of the playoffs, like it's a different atmosphere, different game. I'm not gonna like be like upset with you if you struggled in your first game, especially considering, like I said, a lot of people struggled in that first game or first couple of games, right? Wasn't mad at that. Game 2 responded in the way that we needed him to respond, right? Absolutely phenomenal game 2. Game 3, first game on the road, same thing there. Come with a bit of bail because it's like first road game, especially in that arena. Like we're Rockets fans, we know how that fan base is in that arena. Like I understand why that might have been somewhat of an intimidating and like a new experience for you. So same thing there. I'm not gonna sit here and say that like these young guys should have went out there and been LeBron James and Kyrie Irving in 2016 in their very first playoffs. Like I understand there was gonna be growing pains in the series itself. But when game 3 ended, that was the game where Draymond Green kind of punked him off the court. And then he went to the post-game press conference and said, Draymond does a whole lot of nothing. That's me paraphrasing, but the message was that Draymond Green just talks. He doesn't do anything on the court. I'm expecting game 4, like that's the empty the clip game. Even if he's off, bro, he put him at least 25 shots. Like I'm thinking that's going to be the game where like we may not win it. Jalen Green may not be efficient, but he's going to put a bunch of shots up. Like he's going to go out there and try to pull the rim off of Draymond Green's head, right? That didn't happen. And not only did it not happen, he looked like the mentality looked worse than it did in games 1 through 3, right? Like he looked scared now, right? That was the game where the first 3 minutes of the game, he turned the ball over twice. Two quick transition opportunities. I think he would have had a third one, but we ended up like recovering it. I want to say he had 4 turnovers in the first half of that game. I could be.
He did. There was a 5th one in that third quarter, and that's when he got hit.
Yeah, and I was going to the handle looked loose. He didn't look like he wanted to be on the court. If there was ever an opportunity for him to attack, he didn't take it. Just the complete mentality shift from what we saw in game 2 to now, where it's like he's not even approaching the game the same way. And I know a lot of people were talking about, but Will, they were trapping him, they were blitzing him. That's true. They did. A lot of times they did, especially after game 2. They were very terrified of Jalen in game 3, right? That is 100% true. But one, I will say Jalen Green is not the first player in NBA history to be trapped and be blitzed. VanVleet got trapped and got blitzed in the latter half of the series and was still able to find ways to be impactful. I'd also say, number 2, some of the times that he was not being impactful was not because he was getting trapped and being blitzed. Like losing the handle, turn the ball over, the first 3 minutes of the game, that wasn't because he got trapped, because he just dribbled off his foot. You know what I'm saying? Like that wasn't a product of the defensive attention Steve Kerr was showing him. And then my last point to that is, by game 5 or 6, the defensive game plan on him changed. It was no longer trap Jalen Green by all means necessary. That attention went to Fred. It was like they started game 7 with Steph Curry on him, not off switches. That was Steph Curry's assignment. And like, I'm not telling you Steph Curry's a bum defensively, but like obviously, if Steph Curry is guarding you or anybody on that team, that kind of tells you what Steve Kerr is like, where he views you as a player right now. So like I'm not accepting that as an answer for why he struggled in the postseason. And like I said, for me, it wasn't. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm disappointed in him because he had a bad series per se. It's how it looked, right? Because in the grand scheme of things, like I said, Amin was bad in 3 of the 7 games. I think Sengun had his moments. I think Sengun sold us in game 7, right? So like I'm not saying that like everybody has to play perfect and everybody did, but Jalen, that's not true. I'm perfectly fine with young players having growing pains in the series itself. Like I said, that works for me. It's how it looked that really kind of like took me aback. There didn't seem to be any urgency. There didn't seem to be any fight, right? Like in game 4, like I said, bro, to me, that was the game when we lost game 4. Y'all know, y'all mad on me on Twitter. I thought we lost the series in game 4. That was, you don't come back down 3-1. When it's very much your season is on the cusp of ending. I watched Amin Thompson and Alperen Sengun say, no, I don't want to lose. And we still lost, but I watched them say, no, I'm not ready for my season to be over with. I don't care if it looks ugly. I'm going out there. I'm going to try to win this game. I didn't see Jalen try to do that. I didn't see that, like, I'm going to go down swinging by all means. And for me, that was when I made the switch in my head of, I hate it, but for the rest of this series, I cannot depend upon you to be that version of you that I wanted you to be. I can't no more. That's on me at that point. If that's the way you're going to respond to being punked off the court that way, is to shrink when your team kind of needs you to step up. I can't go into game 5, 6, and 7 and say, all right, Jalen, I need you to drop 25 today. I can't. That's why, like, by game 7, everybody was mad that I wasn't mad at Jalen. And I'm like, man, I can't have no energy for him. I can only hold him to the standard that he showed me. I can't expect him to do something that he's not capable of. That's like, that would be, I used the example of, that would be like me getting mad at Tari for not dropping 30. Or that would be like me getting mad at Sengun for not being a POA stopper. Like, it's not the game. You know what I'm saying? That's not what they do. That would be holding to an unfair expectation. And so, yeah, like I think me going into game 7 saying, all right, Jalen, you failed us because you didn't go out there and drop 25 plus. I mean, that's me holding to an unfair expectation at that point. Because, he hasn't in 6 or 5 of the 6 games prior to that, he showed me couldn't even do it. I think he only put up double-digit field goals twice this series. And it wasn't like, outside of game 2, I think the other one was 11 shots. So it really wasn't even like he was emptying the clip at any point in time. So yeah.
No, actually, that's the funny thing to me. And I forgot who I was talking to this about, but I wasn't mad at his game 1. Funny enough,
I wasn't either.
And it wasn't even just the fact that, like, it's your first game. He emptied the clip game 1. He had 15 shot attempts. Like, he still went out there saying, like, make or miss, I still got to put him up. Obviously, game 2, he goes off. After that, game 3, I think, is the one where everybody should accept, like, the Warriors just said, you're not beating us. It was, every single ball screen. Yeah. Like, every single ball screen in game 3, I'm talking immediate blitz every single time the ball is not touching your hands. I'm not letting you beat us. That was understandable. I get why it might be a bit harder for you to impact the game in that situation. Game 4, it wasn't 100% blitz. Game 4 was like 60-40. Game 5, it was like 50-50. Game 6 and 7, like 40-60, 30-70. They're kind of leaving like Buddy Hield on you. Like funny, it's Steve Kerr went viral for saying it. Like, oh, nobody's ever said these words. Buddy Hield set the tone defensively. Like that, like you let that happen. You got plucked by Buddy Hield, dude. Like that's the disappointing part to me is it's one thing for a team to just outright take you out the game. I've seen it happen to plenty of players where they get accused of being playoff droppers because the team is just full sell. Just you're not going to beat us. I'm selling out on you and you alone. He took himself out the game in the series. Like games 4, games 5, and game 6 especially, you could just see it was like a let me be a decoy. And that works if you're Steph Curry. That works if you're Kevin Durant. That works if you're LeBron James. I can be a decoy at times because everyone knows how impactful of a player I am and how dangerous I am, even when the ball's not in my hand. That's not Jalen Green. Like, you're the guy that I need. The ball has to be in your hands for you to be Jalen Green. And when you have the ball in your hands, I need you to be decisive. I need you to be just willing to go to the basket, willing to drive. It was a play he had in game 7. Funny enough, we brought it up in the playback. He beat, I want to say it was Buddy Hield or Brandon Pajemski off the dribble like twice in one play going left. Like clean blows by, gets to the free throw line, and backpedals. And in the playback, I'm like, well, Draymond's right there, Looney's right there. Like, all right, I get it. You don't want to go there. Next play, Moses Moody, an objectively better defender, is on him, blows right by, inside hand finish. And now it's like, so what? It's one thing to just not be a consistent player. It's another thing to not be consistent mentally. I'm okay if you're consistently a mental idiot, because then I just know I can't trust you. I know that you can't be on the floor. I know your feel for the game is just bad. Fine, whatever, dude. We can go off.
We got one of those guys on the team.
Yeah, we do. It's another thing if on one possession everyone's getting hyped because it's like, oh, this is where it clicks, and the next possession you go right back to square one. You go right back to looking like a legitimate rookie on an NBA basketball court. That can't happen. It can't be who am I getting? Not even by game thing at this point. On a legitimate possession by possession, what version of Jalen Green am I getting? Like, it's that meme, like, he rolls a dice and it lands on some version of an NBA player. That's every possession now. I quite literally don't know what version of Jalen Green I'm getting. Shout out to Jada. We talked about this in the playback. The game plan was to force him left. Became very obvious. They wanted to force him left into the ice, make him get off the ball. Even when they weren't blitzing, everything was, I'm playing your hip top side. You're not getting to this right hand. It's one thing to say that. It's another thing to let a team do that to you. You don't have to just force the issue going left. Make a move. Open his hips. It's Brandon Pajemski. No disrespect to Brandon Pajemski. You're in the league and I'm not. He's not some all-world defender. He's going to move his hips.
Once GP2 went down, that was pretty much it in terms of their perimeter defense, because they had Draymond glued to Sengun, and Jimmy wasn't being POA like that.
He was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, like, Jimmy's always been like a weak side guy. Like, they were putting your quote-unquote best defensive assignment, but their best defensive assignment's Brandon Pajemski at this point, dude. Like, they're leaving Buddy Hield on the island with you. They're putting Steph Curry on you, and Steph is no slouch defender by any means. He wouldn't be Steph Curry if he was just a bad defender. They wouldn't play him the way they do. But you're Jalen Green. I know the athletic gifts you have. I know the tools that you have. I've seen you show them against better defenders. I've seen you show them against better defensive teams. And we get to this moment, and it's just – it wasn't like that was Andrew Wiggins. It wasn't even like Kuminga's a good Jalen Green defender. It wasn't like if it was Kuminga, wasn't a bigger body that could wall him up. These are dudes that you actually way similar to. These are dudes that you were way more athletic to, and it just felt like the moment got to him, and then he just became so reluctant on a play-by-play basis, and you can't win with that. You can't win with that. At this point, I don't know if y'all wanted to go into this. I'm listening to any and all offers if you want them, and if nobody's wants to call me, I'm gonna start calling some teams. I'm gonna see who liked them pre-draft, see what some whispers around the league are, because it's gonna be some team out there that says it's our fault. It happens with every single player. Every single player that was a high draft pick that didn't work out in his first team, there's going to be some team that says, I can fix him. Y'all didn't know how to use him. Y'all weren't using him right. If you can find that team and you can get something of equal value to me, or I trust Stoney, he's been pretty solid in some of his trades, you can get some real value back. I don't see why you wouldn't make the trade at this point. Because at this point, man, he can't take away shots from Amen Thompson. He can't be the guy that I look at and say, you're the reason Reed Sheppard's not playing. And Will, we've spoken about this in Discord. It's not like he can scale down because you're paying him $33.5 million next year. He's the second highest paid player on the team next year. You can't bench him. You can't say like, because now his trade value is really gone. Because now you're on a bad contract and your own team has told you suck. I'm interested to see what they do. I think the nature of his contract makes it very movable. When he first signed it, to me, it looked like if you work out, this is a hell of a steal. If you don't work out, we put this in a trade package and keep it moving. So I assume that's the direction they're going to go in. Obviously, I don't know. They could see it a different way. Their own analytics models could have it a certain way. Maybe they just don't find the right trade partner for it. Who knows? But if you don't at least make some phone calls, I'd be very disappointed.
I'll say this. I definitely think they're going to be making some phone calls. I know we're going to chime in as well. But yeah, no, when it comes to Jalen, Will mentioned it too. It just comes down. I think he's just straight up mentally weak at this point in time. Like he was mentally checked out of the series. He allowed himself to be taken out of the game. He allowed them to game plan him out of the series, and he just wasn't aggressive enough. And I mean, that's just that. Like they could keep him going into next year, and again, like they got a young team. They just won 52. I wouldn't even be surprised if they improve. But at this point in time, if he's going to stay or whatever happens, he literally cannot come back on that kind of time. But luckily for the Rockets, they have a bunch of time in the world. Again, the ceiling is only going to get increasingly better. A lot of these guys on the team are going to continue to grow, like Amen, Sengun. It's a lot of pieces. But when it comes to Jalen, he's just got to step up, and these guys are ready to grow, and they just can't have anybody holding him back, as Dre mentioned. You got a guy like Reed waiting right there. You don't want to take touches away from a man who can jump to be like a top 20 guy in the league, So, again, you don't want to scale down, what Jalen's doing, because then, as Dre said, you're pretty much saying, hey, we lost faith in this guy. So I am very curious to see what they do. If it's up to me, again, as any GM does, you take calls, you see what's out there, and you don't force anything. If it makes sense, it makes sense. But I am really curious to see what happens. I personally don't know. I don't know the move I could think of off the top of my head that would make sense. Again, because Booker, it's just not going to happen in my personal opinion. And they're not going to move him for KD. I don't see why Phoenix would do that. Pairing Booker and JG, that makes sense for me. But I personally don't know what happens. I can't think of a logical Jalen Green trade partner. But the only thing I can think of is assuming he's going to be on the team next year. I just need him to be more mentally tough because what I just saw wasn't it.
So I have a couple things I want to address based on what y'all were saying. One, I did the math. He only took 9.2 shots per game after game 3.
Yeah.
After game 2. So like that's an 11 field goal game, 8 field goal game, 8 field goal game, 11 field goal game, and an 8 field goal game. Which, like I said, like I need you to. I ain't saying go out there and just start chucking, bro. But like, look like you want to be out there. Look like the season's on the line. Like I need to see some sense of urgency as the guy that we paid and empowered to a degree to lead our offense. Look like that guy, because if you don't, bro, we could go home. Like that could be the end of the series. And I didn't see that from him. Another thing too is I think part of the reason, I'm not going to blame every issue with this roster on Jalen. That's disingenuous. But I do think that a lot of like the things people complain about, such as a hierarchy, right? People say, well, why did Dylan take this shot? Why is Dylan forcing an issue here? Why is Fred forcing an issue here? If we had a guy on this team who was taking 19 and 20 shots on the perimeter or, creating shots for themselves, getting downhill, there's not even an opportunity for Fred or Dylan to do that. And I don't think neither Fred or Dylan want to play that way, right? You look at every month where Jalen goes off, go look at Fred's stats. And it's pretty crazy how every time that Jalen starts playing at that level of, okay, this could be the guy, look who kind of scales himself back, So like I think that the over-reliance on Fred, over-reliance on Dylan. I think it was game 3 where Dylan fouled out, and I was like, Dylan, we need you, like offense. I'm like, that's a joke, but like that's serious, and it's because if we don't get it from Dylan, like, man, I'd be getting it from nobody on that particular night, right? And so I think that you would start seeing certain guys start scaling back into the roles. I also think that Sengun's job gets easier. If he has an actual pick and roll partner who has his own gravity, who can create his own shot, who can give him the ball. There was a really bad play, and I don't even want to bully Jalen, but there was a really bad play where Sengun had, I think it was Buddy Hield on him in the post, and Draymond was guarding Jalen, and for some reason he takes like a step back corner three, obviously gets like clamped up by Draymond. It's like, okay, step back corner three with Draymond, one of the best defenders of all time guarding you, or the 6'11" guy who's been dominating this series with Buddy Hield on him. You know, I don't know if that was the decision there. So like I said, I have a list of things, right? Number one, I'm just gonna start dispelling some of the narratives I'm seeing, right? The narrative that the spacing is the problem and that like the team design is just bad for Jalen. Number one, right? Because I think when people talk about the space, they're talking about the avenue for Jalen to get downhill, put pressure on him, and finish around there. Amen Thompson plays on this same team, and he has a worse handle and a worse jump shot. And teams know this, by the way. Like, teams don't even guard him in, right? At least Jalen's getting picked up. Teams are just going to sag off and let him in, pick up the head of steam going downhill. And even with that, Amen can still finish at the basket. He can still get there. He can still finish. So I'm not gonna buy that the defense is just so packed that Jalen Green can't do it if a guy, like I said, with a worse handle and even less of a threat to shoot can do it. But also, if I have to build the perfect team for you to not play the way you played this series, you may not be that good. If I have to build the perfect roster for you to not play that way, that I think that says more about you as a player than it says about that roster. Because mind you, every like roster complaint you can have doesn't just apply to Jalen. It applies to Sengun too. It applies to Min. It applies to Fred. These aren't like like obviously, like I said, the defensive attention that Jalen saw in the first half of the series was definitely a bit more exclusive to him. But mind you, Sengun's getting guarded by, once again, probably the greatest defender of our generation. Like Draymond Green, I don't even like the dude, but he's an amazing defender. He definitely earned his money defensively this series. And so like it's not like no one else is facing a heavy defensive attention. It's not like he's the only guy out there getting trapped. It happens to other people, right? I think it's also pretty damning that in not even a full season of starting, I think I've seen more chemistry between Amen Thompson and Alperen Sengun than I have in 4 years of Jalen and Sengun. I think that's a problem that like we're 4 years in, because that's another thing too. Like I think people are going to pull the card up. Well, it's just the playoffs. No, I'm kind of going off of his not just his playoffs, but just his career up until this point. I think it's damning that we haven't really seen a consistent two-man game between Jalen and Sengun. When Amen Thompson, like I said, I don't even want to, this is going to sound negative to Amen, but Amen has in terms of skill set, Amen's skill set is not as, like Jalen's bag is a whole lot deeper than Amen's. He can do a lot more in a basketball court than Amen can. Amen, like I said, he's a very limited handle, cannot shoot. 90% of his baskets are like literally at the rim, right? And a lot of that comes off like play finishing, transition, and just barreling downhill. Like that's his skill set. Even with that limited skill set, I've seen more chemistry, and like I see a synergy building there. I see ways where like when this duo figures it out, which I think they're going to as their games mature, I'm like, I can see how this is going to mess the league up. Can't say that about Jalen, right? So I think that's also pretty damning. I think it's also pretty damning that in Game 7, it kind of like Ime was kind of checked out on it, right? Like Jalen only played 30 minutes in Game 7. Everybody else who was like a part of the starting five was pushing 40. Some of them were in the 40s. And that was I believe in the first quarter, he didn't play, but maybe like 4 or 5 minutes. I should look it up, but he didn't play that much in that first quarter.
Yeah, he was the first sub for Steve-O.
Yeah, he put Steven Adams in like at like the 7-8 minute mark, I want to say, like very early.
It was like 7.
Yeah, he put him in the game very early, and it was for Jalen. And that to me kind of goes into what I was saying about earlier about like I can't go into a game asking to be someone that you're not. And it looked like Ime kind of accepted that in Game 7.
I think Game 7 is like, it's such a damning piece of evidence, especially to your first point about the spacing. To say in a Game 7 as a head coach, screw the spacing, we have to mash, that is more an indictment on Jalen Green than it is the rest of the team. Because in theory, Jalen Green is supposed to be a part of that spacing. Like he's supposed to be somebody that opens up the floor for everybody else because he's supposed to be he did improve as a catch and shoot shooter. So I don't want to say like he just didn't improve at anything this season. But like you're supposed to be a legitimate floor spacer for this team, a perimeter outlet, and you weren't. And when I have to look and say, all right, we're winning the possession battle, but we're not capitalizing on it, what's going to be the better option to capitalize on these possessions? Jalen Green or Steven Adams?
Yeah.
When everyone in the world is collectively saying, dude, right now it's Steven Adams, that is more of an indictment on you. That is. Like it's not a roster construction thing. It's not a the coach doesn't like me, the offense isn't this, blah, blah, blah. A lot of the stuff I keep hearing. Like that's on you. And I don't know if this is your next point, Will, but I do want to bring this up.
Still my points. I got a couple more.
This idea that it's Ime Udoka's fault genuinely annoys me. Ime is not like this offensive savant by any means, right?
No.
Please go do your research on the Celtics offensive play types from the year he left for the last 2 years. They're almost identical. They are genuinely almost identical. It's not like this is an offensively inept coach. He has a style of play he genuinely wants to play. He can't play it with this roster. And a massive reason he can't play with this roster is because his main perimeter creator, supposed to be a main perimeter creator, can't create an isolation. He's not uber efficient out of pick and rolls. So now the two main types I'm supposed to have for a legitimate perimeter scorer, it's kind of out the window now, right? Like I used to beg for Jalen Green handoffs because he was really good at them. Regressed insanely on him this year. He was like 0.87 points per possession this year, which is god awful. I can't spam handoffs 20 times a game. But like I can't spam 20 to 30 DHOs a game. It's not how the game of basketball works. No team does it. A DHO is like a reaction off a pick and roll. And you float DHOs into pick and roll. It's still going to come back to the most used set in basketball at the end of the day. When you're not effective at any of those play types, when you're not efficient as a pull-up shooter, he actually did improve at finishing at the rim this year, but his rim field goal attempts got worse. So you improved at it, but I can't get to the basket as effectively as what I used to be able to. Like, again, these are just indictments on you, and you're part of the reason why the offense looks limited at time. You're a part of the reason why the spacing looks the way it does. It's baffling to me how some people make every excuse. Like y'all know, I'm gonna still be Romande FC forever. I made the logo for a reason. I'm gonna still root for the kid no matter. I think his talent is otherworldly. It's just something's got to click for him mentally on the type of player he needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not gonna sit here and make every excuse in the book for why Jalen Green is bad. Because at some point, man, you get the excuse like 7. All right, bro, maybe it's not me. Maybe it's you. At some point you have to accept everyone else can't be the problem. Everything else can't be the problem. I got to look in the mirror and say, man, Jalen Green just might be holding everybody back. Jalen Green just might not be as good right now as what we need him to be. And especially for the context of this roster, man, like we got some guys that are ready. I truly believe we got some guys that are ready. And if I'm looking at one dude, like every piece of on-off data says you're bad. Every piece of advanced analytics says that you're an average NBA player at best right now. Something's got to shake, dude. And I don't think I'm telling 2-8 to leave. I know I'm not telling 1 to leave.
Right.
At this point, bro, I'm looking at the quote-unquote hierarchy saying it's one piece on the pedestal that I could probably remove and replace. I probably got to replace that piece.
And again, I'll say this real quick, and I'll let Will go. When it comes to Jalen, again, like he could be the ceiling of this team. We've been saying it the longest. You know, when he's on, his team is at its best. Happened last March, happened this January. He's definitely like the ceiling of this team. Like that's what we've shown. But you can only say if for so long. It gets to a point where, again, the mental toughness kicks in, and he's got to be that guy. And he told us, right, in the series, like the lights was too bright. And that's what I said already. I saw that in games 3 through 7. So, again, that has to click and has to come. And if he stays next year, I think next year is definitely his last chance to show. And I know he's young, but, again, there's only so many excuses you can bring to the table when you got a really good up-and-coming team. You're going to want to take that next step. So I don't want to compare the kid to Josh Giddey, but they made that swap for Caruso for a reason. Like, they looked at the analytics, they looked at the plus minus and saw the one difference. Like, hey, when this guy's off the court, we're much better. And from an analytical standpoint, that was also the case with Jalen Green this year. So, hey, I mean, again, if someone wants to make that move, I definitely understand it. But Jalen, this next year coming up, if you're on the team, you got to step it up mentally. And we don't want to be saying the if game, and you just got to step up, and that's it.
I had 2 more points, and then I was going to kind of close it, for at least for me. Then I guess we can kind of run off some quick questions. But Dre, you talked about one of the things of being about his scalability in his role, right? You talked about it from the contract perspective. I'm gonna talk about it from the play style perspective, because, and I think this is an excellent point that a friend of the show, Isaiah, said. We're gonna get him on the show pretty soon, actually. But it's true. He was like, go look at how many games this year where Jalen Green scored like 25 plus, how many games he scored like in the 15-ish range, and how many games he scored below like 10 or below 15, right? You'll see that there's a lot more games of him scoring like 25 plus than there are of him being like in that medium, and there's a lot more games of him being below that. There's like hardly ever any just median, and that's how you get what he averaged was like 21 points per game on 54 true shooting. There's probably not that many games this year where he dropped that stat line because the reason you get that stat line is because it's a bunch of games of him dropping 25 plus, but a bunch of games of him dropping 10, 11, 12, right? Like that's how you get that. And the reason why I said I don't know if he's scalable, his outcomes are, and I'm not trying to be funny, Kobe Bryant or J.R. Smith. Like that's like on any possession by possession or game by game basis, that's what he is. He's either Kobe Bryant on offense or he's J.R. Smith. And probably a couple more times than you like it to, it's the latter. But I don't know if you can, like, that player isn't scalable. So when you look at what like a 6-man should be, at least the ideal version of one, so I think there's a couple guys who play 6-man, but I think a little bit overrated in it. You'd want someone who can, like, you want Eric Gordon, right? The guy who can be consistent, right? Eric Gordon's gonna go out there and hit threes, go out there and play defense. He'll do a little bit of ball handling duty for you. Like that, to me, that's the ideal 6-man. It's not the guy who, like, okay, are you gonna hit threes today, or are you gonna be a brick and I gotta bench you? Right? I don't really, especially for the price tag, I don't think he's scalable. I think I think Jalen Green's either a star of this team or it's kind of time. And that kind of leads to my last point. I think it's unfair to everyone else to have to I'm not gonna say force. That sounds like that's the wrong connotation. But like, I don't think it's fair for everybody to have to play another season with Jalen right now. And Dre talked about it with the on-off numbers, the advanced analytics. I'm someone who does a lot of eye test stuff as myself. I'm not going to read off to you the on-offs, but I'm looking at them. It's bad, man. And it's with everyone. It's not just with one or two people. It's with the whole team. And you look at what this team is missing, and it's missing what Jalen Green's supposed to be. And so I think it's unfair to Amin, to Sengun, to Reed, right? As someone who is actively losing opportunities because of, there's only so many guard minutes to go around, right? So he can't really play as much because of Jalen, right? I think it's unfair to Jabari and Tari. I'm not a huge Cam believer, but even Cam to a lesser extent, right? I think it's unfair that they kind of have to be strung along in the maybe this is the year it happens. And, maybe it does. Maybe year 5 is when it clicks. Like I've heard, internally they believe that year 5 is usually how long it takes for shooting guards to break out. So maybe it's year 5. Maybe this playoff experience does, make it work for him. But I think it's unfair to go into next season on hope. I would need something a bit more concrete. And I'll say this. I'm a fan, bro. I sit at home. I watch the games on my computer. I talk about the game, but I'm not by no means am I a basketball expert. I don't watch Jalen Green in practice. I don't have access to all that information. Like the people in that front office making these decisions know the situation a lot more intimately than I do. So if they go into next season and say, no, we're confident, like I'll get behind it, right? Like I can trust the decision makers on this team. But based upon what I have at my disposal, and if I was making a decision, I think you got to call it. And even if that means that he goes on to year 5 and does break out, I just don't think it's fair to everyone else to say, all right, we're going to go into next season with hope, knowing that, like, if it's more or less the same it's been for 4 seasons now, that hurts the whole team, right? Like I said, the net ratings usually isn't misleading. It says we play better without him, right? It says these guys on an individual basis play better without him. Like I said, you go out there, you replace him with someone who does do the ideal version of what he does. I mean, I think this is a 16-win team. I don't think you go out there and lose in Golden State the way you do, because the reason we lost is the same reason. We can't score, right? That's the biggest problem. We can't score in the half court set. You bring in somebody who can kind of relieve some of that pressure on the inside. On the outside, and that was some things for Sengun on the inside. I think that allows Dillon and Fred to kind of scale back into their natural roles. I think that opens up things for Amen Thompson heading downhill. I think everything kind of starts fitting together. I think that also, if you don't bring in somebody who does it, I think it just opens up more minutes for like a Reed Sheppard to kind of show us that maybe he's that guy. I think it's unfair to go back into next season saying that. So I'm at the point now where I think it probably is better for the Rockets to go ahead and make a move on him this summer. And wish him well. And like, that's not me saying I hate Jalen. Like, if he gets traded, bro, I'm still gonna root for him. I'll be happy, honestly, if he finds a home with some consistency somewhere else. Like, because maybe Houston just wasn't the right fit for him. You see guys all the time where it's just not the right destination. And if that's the case, like I wish him nothing but the best. But I'm a Rockets fan. I want to see this team win, and I think that it's unfair to kind of ask these guys to go into next season with that. But that's where I land my plan on Jalen. I don't want to rank on it too much more.
Yeah, you said one thing that like it stuck with me for at least like the last month in regards to Jalen. We're not there every day. And by all accounts of what we hear or what we're allowed to hear, man, those guys, from the players to the staff to the front office, they really believe in him. And it's said so much to the point where, like, I don't think it's just cover. I don't think it's just fluff. Like, he must look like Jordan in practice. Like, when it's more than shoot-arounds, like, he must be Kobe. To the point where those guys look and say, like, man, like, bro, when you start doing this for real, we're going to have something. But I'm with Will on this one, man. Like, it's just – I'd love to find out what the ideal version of Jalen Green is. I just don't know if I'm willing to take that risk anymore here. Like, it was cool on a rookie scale contract. It's the reason why I was shouting from the rooftops for those first 3.5 years about what I think he can be, because it means a lot less when you're only getting 13, 14 million a year on a rookie scale deal. Like, that's rookies and first 4-year players to a certain extent are supposed to look like that. You want guys to break out earlier. You want them to fix some habits, but it's okay at that price point. I'm okay with you losing a couple possessions at 12 million. I can't lose possessions when next season you're going to be making 33.5. And I definitely can't lose them in year 6 when you're making 36. You're taking up real cap space now. You now hinder my team from making more moves. I can't stomach that anymore. I can't stomach us losing games when it might be a better guy behind you now. Might be the opportunity to find a better guy behind you now. And now I'm paying you and you're not living up to it. I think the ship has sailed, and maybe he needs a change of scenery. Maybe he needs to – I don't want to say this incorrectly, but I think it's the truth. Maybe he needs to feel that embarrassment. Like, maybe he does need a real kick in the hind saying, you weren't good enough. You got to be better, because it's not a talent issue with him. Like, I don't think it's the furthest thing from a talent issue with him. It's weaponizing that talent. It's consistently using it. So maybe he just needs a wake-up call. In an ideal world, this playoffs was that wake-up call. He comes out next season on the Rockets, and he's 28 a game, right? Are we willing to take that risk? I don't know. I really don't know.
I won't harp too much on it. I think we all made a lot of great points about Jalen Green. We'll probably talk about it again this offseason. But yeah, for me, and this is when I say we'll talk about it later, I just need to see the deal and what makes sense. Again, maybe they just scale down to, as I mentioned earlier, like a Caruso-Giddey kind of deal where you just get someone who's productive in that role, and allows everyone else to kind of shine. But man, it does suck that we got to this point where Jalen, I did not want to see him go out on this note. Again, extremely talented kid, just literally went out there and did not perform to his expectations. So it does suck. I'm curious to see what they do. Again, Rafa has been an amazing GM for the Houston Rockets, so I expect him to make the right move as he's done since he's been in charge of Houston. So I'm looking forward to that. I don't know if y'all want to say anything else regarding Jalen Green or not. But,
I just want to run through some quick questions that people gave us. We can knock it out like a minute or two. But these are some I asked some sort of people, some things people want us to talk about in this episode. First up, what do we think about extending Jabari and Tari? It's dependent. I'm on both.
Yeah. I'm bringing back both.
Yeah. And I think, just real quick, like similar money, I think at this point probably. I think like pretty similar contracts for both as
Bar
well.
might
Yeah.
get a tad bit more from the pick
Yeah.
3 tax, but yeah, I would.
In triple
They should
digits,
be-
fellas? Triple
You
digits?
said what happened?
Are we hitting triple digits?
Depends on how long the deal is.
Yeah,
Like if it's like a 4-year deal, maybe. But gotta see how it works out.
Yeah. The chances of this team, it runs back the same. I'm going to say 0%. I think there's going to be some form or fashion of some real movement. Whether it's actually moving from Jalen, I don't know. But like I do think they're going to go out there and look for some semblance of a star. I think if Devin Booker is available, that's a guy they'll look to target. I think Katie's a guy they're going to look to target. I think Giannis is on the books, and even if we don't get like a star of that caliber, I think that they're going to make some type of marginal move, regardless of that. So I think 0%. It's just the same. Anybody want to chime in on? We can keep it moving.
Same. I think the big thing will be like if Giannis does ask out, what's that short list, and if we're on it, I think that'll be like the real big kicker. But yeah, I don't expect this team to go in exactly the same or run it back completely.
I'll say this really quick. I would expect Giannis to be on that short list personally. But again, that is a roster gutting move, and it is Giannis. So if that's what you want to do,
we'll talk about that. Like that's what I want to get Isaiah on to talk about.
Yeah,
so.
we'll have an episode.
I gotta watch that one. That's gonna be fun.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. Should Ime hire an offensive coordinator? I think you should answer this because you had a really good answer to this.
No, because it doesn't mean anything. I think the idea of an offensive coordinator in basketball is one of like the more obtuse things that I've heard very recently because it's not the NFL. It's not like a head coach takes a step back and thinks big picture. Like he's the guy. Like he is the guy. And I also think that it's a bit disrespectful to the coaching staff we have now. Like if you don't think Royal Ivey and Ben Sullivan and Thiago's not here anymore, but other guys in the staff aren't going to Ime giving their input on the offense, I think that's ludicrous. Like those are NBA caliber coaches who have been well taught, well traveled. We saw what Royal Ivey did with South Sudan. Like that was an excellent team and excellently coached by him. So I don't think that it's they don't want to do different things. I think they looked at their roster and said, this is probably what works best for these guys at the moment. And like it's not the NFL, man. Like I think Van Gundy really ruined it for the next couple of years because they brought him in as like the defensive coordinator. And he definitely did change some things to that defense, but it wasn't like he revitalized it or brought in this totally different scheme. They went out and got Chris Dunn. Nicholas Batum had a better year than he did last year. And they did unlock Ivica Zubac a bit more, or Ivica Zubac. Sorry, Zoo Chamberlain. Like that was really it. It wasn't like some, oh my goodness, we're doing this forward-thinking, super advanced defensive scheme. Like they added a couple better pieces to fit a defensive scheme, and their main defensive player got better. Like I don't know. I think it's a very, I don't want to call people stupid, but it's a very moronic conversation to me.
I'll say I just got off a podcast talking about that. But yeah, personally, I believe it's a personnel issue. You need a guy who can go downhill, create rim pressure consistently. Rockets do not have that, and they do lack shooting. It's a personal issue. I think Ime is doing fine. The coach staff is really good for these Rockets.
Man, I could rant about that all day. Good Lord.
I won't continue. Go ahead, William.
That's the last one, actually. So I'll end it there. Unless somebody else want to chime in real quick, I think we covered a lot in this episode. There's going to be a lot more coming to really just break down not just the playoffs, but like I said, what's coming with the team on the horizon. I want to end it on a good note, though, because I think we kind of talked about some negative stuff at the end there. I still think we're in a really good spot, right? Like if you kind of want my post series thoughts, probably go look at the last episode because I knew it was over at that point. But I feel like we're still in a really good spot. I'm not discouraged at all by this postseason. I'm actually the opposite. I'm very encouraged, actually, because I think the vision for how this team is shaping up and can be, a force to be reckoned with in the league is really starting to show itself. And we saw a lot of that from the playoff experience. So I'm encouraged. I think a lot of these guys are going to come back monsters next season because of this experience. Like Dre said, I know Amen Thompson's mad. I know Sengun's mad. I know they're going to come back like determined to not let what happened this year happen again. And so, like I said, I'm happy. I'm encouraged. Like I said, we'll have a lot of episodes coming up this summer. Talk about the Rockets. Like I said, probably next time you hear from us will probably be some form or fashion of discussing the star trade options. I didn't feel like it was going to talk about that during the playoffs, but now that we're out of it, I think it's probably the best time to talk about it. But yeah, we'll be working on a lot of things with this team. this summer on the channel. So make sure y'all tap in with that. And if you made it to this episode, because we actually ended up going a lot longer than I thought we would. Appreciate y'all for listening to the whole thing. Hope you got the insight that you were looking for. With that being said, Brad, you want to add anything else?
Youngest 50 team win in franchise history. Future is bright. And look, they're only on the upside from here. So I'm very excited for the future of this team. That's all I got.
I just want to say thank you to Dre for joining us again. This won't be his last time on the show. Probably won't even be his last time this summer, honestly. So
I'll be back, man. We're hunting down J-Dub, man. We're hunting down J-Dub.
Yeah. So thank you for coming on again. And thank y'all for listening.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll be back sometime soon with another episode of the Bradeaux and Will Show.